The Wire rivals the Gem Hadar and Melora. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Seventh Rule with Cirroc Lofton.
Hello, hello.
My name is Ryan T. Husk. I had to throw Melora in there, by the way. Today, we're doing a seasonal review of Deep Space Nine Season 2. This is a look back at the entirety of Season 2 and all of the mostly awesome episodes in it. It's going to be a fun time. How you doing today, Cirroc?
Doing very well.
Nice.
Doing very well. It's nice and cool, and I'm ready to get into it.
Do you remember Melora?
Not that much. Coming to my head, I think it was the Bashir girl that he had a crush on, and they had that like SpaceX.
Yeah. You sound like Elon Musk right there. SpaceX.
Yeah, that was SpaceX.
With an extra S in there. That was the one where the final showdown had her floating through anti-gravity and doing like the double axe handle knuckle sternum gizzard thing. That was that was definitely an episode in the second season.
One of the best episodes all time from what I No, not at all. I can't remember that.
Of Deep Space Nine, it's definitely top 170.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any doubt about that.
Yeah, it definitely burns an image in your head. You can't forget that.
Yeah. So before we get fully started into this, Season 2, Episode 1 was the first episode that we reviewed without our brother and friend, Mr. Aaron Eisenberg. He tragically passed away on September 22nd, 2019, which was one day before we were going to do a review of Season 2, Episode 1, just one day before we were going to do that. So this episode called Homecoming just makes me think of that. Like, I don't know if I can go back and watch that episode because I'm sure we very much struggled and fumbled and bumbled through it like two lost puppies without our fearless leader.
Yeah. And maybe that's why it's difficult for me to remember some of these episodes, because I've attached them to the memory of Aaron, and some of it is hard to recall and be clear about. But yeah, this was difficult for us to even just start on this second season, and the timing of it, the fact that it was just before the beginning of the season, like it wasn't like midway through. So I remember having the phone conversation with him about, preparing for the next day's work, and all of that kind of stuff is crazy.
Yeah. And then we took a few weeks off. And then when we started back up again, still looking back, like what you're saying, it's very much a haze. It's almost like we were kind of, I don't want to say sleepwalking through the first few episodes, but it was definitely like we were in a haze, like still, must have been mid-October, and we're just kind of figuring it out and saying, well, see how this works. But we did do it. And Aaron is still with us in every episode that we do. We think about him every time. But certainly these first, I believe this was a 3-episode arc. Episode 1 was the Homecoming. Episode 2 was the Circle. Episode 3 was the Siege. And it was about, let's just say it. The Homecoming was about the Circle, a sect of Bajoran provisional government that is intent on wiping out alien influence. And that group is sneaking into power. And there was like a 3-episode arc with those three. And the second one was Kira spends time with Vedic Bareil, and they start to learn about the Circle. And the third one, the Siege, as a Circle-led Bajoran military attempts to occupy the station. God, I barely remember that. I barely remember that. Yeah. I'm like, I remember that it had that 3-episode arc. and I remember it was about the extremist Bajorans, right? But I don't remember these details. You know?
Yeah, it's what I do remember is in Homecoming. I remember the runabout that Kira and O'Brien took down to that Cardassian labor camp, and they found those Bajoran laborers there. I remember that planetary scene and that.
Oh, yes. You're right. I remember that too. And then they kind of had to like retreat back to
Right.
the, in like a firefight, like retreating back to the, wow, you're right. Yeah.
Yeah. But the whole taking over the station in the siege, like I don't remember the siege as much though. I do remember in Homecoming, the kind of hero's welcome that the Bajoran fighter that they found was fleeing from when they brought him back to the station. He didn't really want to be that.
Yeah.
So I remember a little bit about it. The siege part and this extremist group, that's the part that I don't remember as much.
That's practically the only thing I remember. I just remember that was kind of the conflict of the 3 episodes, but it was a really good concept because you guys had 19 episodes for the first season. Second season started with a bang, a 3-episode arc, which was only done afterwards once more similarly, which was the first 6 episodes of season 6. There was that 6-episode arc there. So this was kind of like a prelude to that. And so I think this 3-episode arc must have been like really, something new back in 1993, because before they would just have a 2-parter, which would bridge one season to the next. But this didn't do that. They just started off season, and it must have been really cool. Must have been really cool at the time.
Yeah. And part of the reason I blocked it out and now I'm looking at it is in the circle, we had a little bit of Vedic Win, and every time I see Vedic Win, I try to forget her. But she's also an instrumental character because of this whole Bajoran conflict that's happening in this opening 3-parter.
So anyway, we move on to episode 4, which was called Invasive Procedures. A jealous Trill who had waited his entire life to receive a symbiont, but never did, decides to steal Dax's. I remember the title of this, and I think, no, this was not the episode in which we see Curzon. I think that was like the first episode or something like that. But I do remember this one a little bit. What do you remember of this?
I remember the character that was interested in getting this Trill was not likable, and
right,
and didn't possess the qualities that you would need to have in order to be a host, right? There was a certain qualifications there, and I think even Dax herself was complaining about some of the difficulties and the emotional difficulties and physical difficulties of having to overcome the testing mechanisms to see who is worthy of being a host, right? And that was what I remember from this episode, mostly about what kind of qualifications and who would be suitable.
Yeah, I remember finding this episode interesting because we learn more about the Trill. And this is kind of the episode, there are a few episodes along the ride where we learn more about the Trill. Later on, there's also the episode in which we find out about all of Dax's previous hosts and all the different ones, and then the one that she was suppressing for so long and all that. But this was the first one where we kind of start to learn about, what is it? I feel like it was like only 2%. It's either 2% or 0.2% of all Trills are actually qualified to be hosts or to take these tests or something like that. So I remember learning all that stuff, and I love that kind of stuff. Like, I don't need an episode to be super exciting. I just needed it to give me more information on a character or on a race or on an anomaly less. I'm less of an anomaly guy, but I want to learn more about the Trill and more about the Bajorn and more about the diplomacy or more about a character or relations and things like that. And this gave us that. So that was kind of my takeaway from that. None of these were terribly highly rated so far yet. Well, the first three did pretty well. They were all over 7.6 or above. So that's really good. The fifth one was called Cardassians. The air date was October 24th, 1993. Political tensions rise on Deep Space Nine when Bajorans board the station with a supposedly orphaned Cardassian whom they have adopted. And I just want to point this out very quickly for those of you listening in. You are missing out on looking at the alien that looks like he's got a butt on his head or something. I don't know what's. I definitely remember this guy because of the way.
I remember that guy. Yeah, that head job right there.
And his outfit is kind of a mix between some Jake Sisko stuff or some Neelix stuff, but definitely 90s. Definitely very 90s outfit there.
Yeah. And then he has the hairdo of like the old wigs and the back in the days. But no, I don't know. I don't remember too much about this episode, Cardassian. And that guy that you showed didn't help jog my memory much.
Well, this was also the episode that that premiered one of Garrick's best outfits ever. It's like this green and dark green striped outfit with brown vest stuff around it. It's a very well-known, like when we think of Garrick, he's got like maybe 3 outfits that really stand out. There's this one, there's the one that's like silver with like the burgundy kind of wrapping around and coming down the middle. Right. And then or it's like gray and burgundy, things like that. So that, anything that gives you more Garrick and cooler Garrick, stuff is good by me.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do
Cardassians.
Yeah. Okay, so here was the orphan. If I remember correctly, I'm pulling this guy up. This guy right here. So he was like, if you'll recall, this was the one where he was supposed to be playing like a 12 or 13 or 14. And we're both like, that dude is 30, man. There's no way that's not a 30-year-old dude. And then I think we looked him up and he was like, in his late 20s or something like that.
Yeah. If I'm not mistaken, he like bit Garrick's hand or something, and it was like kind of a weird move for a 30-year-old.
Weird move for
but yeah.
Anyway, what's his name? Rugal,
yeah.
Anyway, okay. Enough on that guy. Yeah, I think he was 25, maybe only. Okay, whatever. So the next one, of course, was everybody's favorite. And I gotta admit, it's Melora, by the way, episode 6. It's Melora. This was the first one that I feel like my enjoyment for this podcast grew with this episode. Like every episode kind of was fun to do. It was fun to talk with you and Aaron. It was fun to have guests on. It was fun to revisit episodes that I didn't even remember watching many times. And Melora was certainly one of those. But this one, I feel like there was a spike in my enjoyment because I was like, even the episodes that aren't considered very good are still fun as hell and they're interesting. And you can actually find more enjoyment in those because it's endearing. It's charming to not have perfect episodes. And right now, everybody gets so up in arms if you say, this episode wasn't very good, or this character of the new stuff, people get so up in arms, but it's like, dude, it's okay to have episodes that aren't as good, or that aren't as highly rated, or that aren't as exciting. That's, to me, that's charming. Like, I reference Melora and Meridian over and over and over again. And I enjoy the hell out of it. And people talk about Tuvix all the time, and Alamarine, or what was it called? Not Progress. Oh, well, it'll come to me in a second. But that's the thing. I don't think it's bad to have these episodes that are kind of filler episodes that aren't like super exciting. I remember that being kind of like a step up in how much I was enjoying this, because everything's fun with Deep Space Nine.
I kind of know what you're talking about, and those episodes go in a different category for me. I don't look at them like, okay, what kind of moral story was told, or what can I learn from this? Sometimes it's just pure entertainment, and I can look at it as just that, and it doesn't have to be, well, this is not scientific enough, or sometimes it's just for entertainment purposes, and allows you to kind of relax. And I think this is one of those episodes where the fun that we have analyzing it and talking about it, those scenes with the anti-gravity stuff, I mean, that was as much fun to talk about as anything else.
It's fun. It's charming. It's okay to poke fun at your favorite show. It's okay to, because it's harmless, and it was fun. And I look back at it with fondness, like, I don't like Deep Space Nine any less because there were some episodes that were worse than others or better than others. To me, it adds to the charm. We don't hate the original series because Kirk and the Gorn fight was super cheap, with like the Gorn swinging in uber slow motion, and Kirk that makes it more fun. I like it. I'm like, that makes it more charming and enjoyable for me. So, if we ever talk a little jive about, old Star Trek or the new ones, you guys, it comes from a place of love most of the time.
Most of the time.
By the way, it was Move Along Home is the Alamarine episode. I know I can hear everybody screaming it right now. They're like, it's Move Along Home. Obviously not Progress. Progress is self-sealing stem bolts. Okay, we get it.
Yeah, Melora.
Anyway.
So you always bring up Melora. This is one of your episodes, huh? You like to bring this one up.
Yeah, and I want to watch it again. I want to watch all of the first and second season over again, because I felt like a lot of these, when I watched them with you, I felt like it was my first time viewing them, because I must have just seen them once 25 years ago, or just skipped kind of through it, because a lot of these, I felt like I was seeing them for the first time, which is great. It felt like just new Star Trek, more of what I love, more 90s Trek. And Melora, I would gladly watch Melora again. I gladly watch all these again.
Yeah, and actually that was what I felt when we were doing the first season review. As I was thinking, I would like to watch them again, because I feel like I don't know the names off the top of my head, and sometimes I don't remember some of the stories, and it would be nice to refresh. It's crazy though, because the overall essence of the flavor though I get, right? So I don't remember specifics, but I know that I enjoyed it overall when I look back, and I'm like, oh yeah, that was a good season.
Yeah.
But that's why it's fun when we go, episode by episode and kind of look at it.
Right. And the next one we had Rules of Acquisition. A female Ferengi named Pell, you'll remember this one, a female Ferengi named Pell, posing as a male so that she can engage in business, falls for Quark during very important negotiations between the Ferengi and a Gamma Quadrant race. So this was another one of those Ferengi stories where we realize just how crappy the Ferengi society is, that a woman has to pretend to be a man just to do business. But then she ends up falling in love with Quark, because who wouldn't, of course. But yeah, this was a fun one. And I remember she took off her big ears, and that's how she revealed that she was actually, because everybody knows female Ferengi have cute little ears, and boys have big, ugly ears.
This is more of like a cultural type of episode where you get into the different cultures that they try to represent on this show, and the Ferengi are interesting. And I think this is when they began the journey of kind of going deep into politics and the women's rights movement in Ferengi culture. This was the beginning of that, and it's something that they stick with because we see it, up until season 6. It's still a very poignant topic as far as the Ferengi politics are concerned and women's rights, and are they getting it, and how is it advancing? So I think this is a great beginning to set that storyline up for later on, which would come up many times.
Yeah, good stuff. Next one is Necessary Evil. This is the highest rated episode, I think, this season, or tied with the highest rated of the entire season. Nope, there was one other one that was higher, or a couple others. But this is definitely one of the highest, Necessary Evil. This is when Odo relives some terrible and tragic memories of a past investigation when he was the constable on Cardassian-occupied Deep Space Nine, then named Terok Nor. So this was our first time. It's kind of like if the station were a character, this was almost like the station's character's backstory, what it was before when it was Terok Nor. It was our first glimpse of that. And I think this is when Odo has his belt on, or, there's the whole belt situation. And we see that he was actually doing, the bidding of bad people and doing bad things, under the guise of, or under the explanation of, I'm just doing my job. And I remember that was a very good one. I really enjoyed it.
I did too, and that one actually stuck with me because it did go back to DS9, showed us a glimpse into its past, and also gave us a glimpse into Odo's past and kind of who he was before this occupation ended. But I remember him also being haunted with the guilt of having essentially accused the wrong people or of a crime, and having that kind of guilt on him. So I thought that was great for his character. It made him more human to me. It made him more conscious and made him have remorse. And so I enjoyed this episode.
More human than human, as Rob Zombie would remind us. So great song by White Zombie. Here's the key. The next one, this one is going to be, this one's a curveball here. Second Sight. This is season 2, episode 9. Trick question, Cirroc. How much do you remember of this one? Because I don't remember anything, and I'll tell you why. Because we didn't review it.
Oh, well, it is.
This is the one episode in all of Deep Space Nine until season 7 so far that we did not review. This was the one reviewed by Melissa, Kat, and Heather Jordan, because we gave them a full, an all ladies episode, and they dominated, and people are clamoring. They're like, never bring back the boys, never bring back the boys. But we came back anyway. So that episode actually aired on, for us, our review aired on December 29th, 2019. And it was Heather Jordan, Kat King, and Melissa Longo. I think, that was Melissa Longo's first review. And her second review was literally the very next week when we did our review of season 2, episode 10, Sanctuary. But we'll have to talk about that on the other side of our break, everybody. We'll be right back on The Seventh Rule. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to The Seventh Rule with Cirroc Lofton.
Hello.
My name is Ryan T. Husk. We had a little bit of a technical difficulty there. That's why we were both like staring like, is it working? Is it working? But it did work. Before we move on to episode 10 of season 2, Cirroc, you want to throw some thoughts down on season 2, episode 9, right? Second.
Yeah, you asked me what I remembered about this episode, and we didn't review it, but I do remember something. I wasn't in this episode, but I was around when they filmed it, and I have 2 words for you.
Ooh.
And her name is Sally Richardson.
Okay. Well, Sally Richardson, eh?
Yeah. That's all I need to say about that. And she is fantastic. And if I had to make a list of the most beautiful people who've ever been on Star Trek, she would be on that list.
Man, and then we had to pick that episode to pull you away. And you're like, I don't want to be pulled away.
I want to review this episode.
That's her right there. Wow, you are right. What a lovely lady there. Sally Richardson.
Sally Richardson. And she, in the episode, I remember her wearing a kimono. And I wasn't on set, but I was there as she was walking to the set.
That's so cool.
And it was amazing. Her in that kimono was ridiculous.
So you're just hanging out on set. You're like, yeah, I know I'm not in this episode, but whatever.
Yeah, I used to. I'd be on the set every once in a while. Either I had schooling to do on the set, or I would just be hanging out with friends on other shows. Clueless filmed right across from us, so I hang out with the Clueless cast.
Okay. She was also in Altered Carbon, by the way, everybody listening in at home that's like, what else was she in? What else was she in? Altered Carbon is the answer there. And a bunch of other stuff. Anyway.
A lot of other stuff, yeah.
That's really cool. So that was Second Sight, right? That was episode 9 of season 2. Episode 10 was called Sanctuary, a race that has been conquered twice over. A race that has been conquered twice over. One of the conquerors, being the mysterious Dominion, comes to the station seeking aid and a new home. You'll definitely remember this alien lady here, because I sure do, and her funny hairdo on the left here.
Oh yeah. With the flipperoo. It looks like in the old days we used to wear our caps and we'd flip this brim part up like this. You remember those days?
Yeah.
That's kind of what her hair looks like it's doing.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember that episode. And here's another really good concept being introduced to us early on here in the second season, and that is the Dominion. And this is our kind of introduction as we start to get to know who the Dominion are, what they're about. When you talk about arc building and story building, this is a very small little nuggets like this start to grow into big storylines. So it's fun to watch it kind of culminate back from the beginning and seeing how a conversation here, a conversation there, a political agenda here turns into intergalactic war.
Yeah, and they kept teasing the Dominion. They kept teasing, there's a race called the Dominion, and there's the Gem Hadar. I guess the Dominion isn't a race, but like a group. And there's the Gem Hadar, and we're starting to learn more and more. And they just keep dropping in little nuggets. They're not usually part of the storyline completely, but they kept dropping these hints. And
Right.
I remember at this point, you and I were like, boy, oh boy, they're really building up the Dominion. They're playing the long game with this one. If Deep
Yes.
Space Nine ever got canceled after the third season, people would have been pissed. They'd be like, you were teasing the Dominion for 2 years and we got nothing. But luckily,
Yeah.
it didn't get canceled. So we got to really flesh those guys out.
Yeah.
The next episode 11, was Rivals. Quark meets his match when a new rival opens a casino opposite his bar on the promenade. Meanwhile, the station is suffering issues of high improbability. Remember, this was the one where Quark's own brother Rom starts working for the other guy or something like that, and there was a lot of hijinks that ensued there where Quark was trying to outdo this guy, and this guy was basically beating him at his own game.
Yeah, I thought there was some kind of skullduggery, trickery, cheating, something that he was doing that was going on, that Quark finally was able to overcome at the end. I'm not exactly sure, but I definitely remember this one. I remember that Quark finally had competition and that everybody was hanging out over at the other guy's spot.
Yeah, because there was like this gambling device. There was like this computer gambling device thing. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it was. And so yeah, I remember that episode. It was, again, it gave us a little bit of insight. It starts building on Quark's character. It gives him something to kind of, reveal about his intents and his motives, which are very much thwarted by this guy opening a competition. But yeah, I remember the episode. It was a good episode.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't this when we get introduced to Bashir and Chief O'Brien's racquetball outfits that you and I still got to cosplay? Remember? I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. Let me. Oh wait, yes. I mean, this isn't a very good picture of it, but you remember this one, like where O'Brien was basically in like a shirt and shorts, but Bashir was wearing some crazy, like he was wearing like a Mentos wrapper or something for an outfit.
Yeah. He got the Tron wardrobe. They mixed the wardrobe department up that day. He
Definitely.
thought he was doing an episode of Tron.
Definitely Tron. Here it is. Okay. I think we even said that in the title of our review. We called it like Tron something. But like, so when we cosplay this, I definitely I get to be O'Brien. I'll wear the weird safari outfit, and whatever. You can be in the Tron.
I like how the knee pads are like built into Bashir's zip up. Well, you know what? That's one of my outfits. He stole that from my closet.
Yeah, that's definitely.
That's just Jake's graduation outfit.
They're like, that's too weird for Jake. Let's give it to Bashir. Anyway, I thought that was the one. Rivals. I hope I never forget this for the rest of my life. Okay, so next, episode 12 was The Alternate. Odo and his mentor, Dr. Mora Paul, discover a life form similar to Odo on a Gamma Quadrant planet. Oh, this was the one where there was like that little Odo baby. Remember that one?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Where the doctor was telling him, this is the stuff that I do. And Odo was upset about the experiments that were being run. Wasn't that what was happening?
That's what I thought.
Yeah. Dr. Mora Pol, the Bajoran scientist who studied Odo when he was first discovered. Yeah. So he was like Odo's father, if you quote unquote, if you want to call it, because he worked with Odo when Odo was first discovered, and he ran all these tests on him. And then when this other thing was discovered, he started to run the tests, and Odo was getting upset that these kinds of tests were being performed. He was like, "You're harming it." I remember this episode. It was a good episode, actually.
Mm-hmm. Oh, here's an interesting piece of trivia. Mara Paul was originally to be played by Rene Auberjonois himself, much as Data's creator Nguyen Sung was played by Brent Spiner. And the Doctor's creator Louis Zimmerman would later be played by Robert Picardo. But the plan was scrapped when it was realized how much time it would take each day to get Auberjonois out of one makeup and into another. Yeah, that's good. Yeah. But that's interesting. I didn't know that. I just happened to go check on this, the IMDb thing, and it had a little trivia piece. That's cool. So, but yeah, this was an episode where it was mostly about Odo realizing that he didn't like the way his quote dad treated him, but then realized that maybe he wasn't all wrong. You know, there was kind of like that moral at the end there.
Right.
Then there was Armageddon Game. Chief O'Brien, who still doesn't particularly like Dr. Bashir, by the way, it says, must rely on him when the two are stranded on a planet and O'Brien is infected with a deadly, fast-moving disease. This is one of the first O'Brien Must Suffer episodes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I don't remember too much of it, though.
Yeah. Basically, I remember that this one was kind of like what it was mentioned in the premise there, that it was kind of about, yeah, it's funny that we forget that O'Brien didn't trust Bashir at first. He didn't like Bashir. And Bashir was kind of like, you know, wanting to be his friend, and he knew that he would end up liking him or whatever. So this was kind of one of those episodes that brought them together, because otherwise we forget that, you know, we just remember them as best friends. But back then, Bashir's best friend on the station, if you would call it that, was Garrick. He was having lunches with Garrick and hanging out with Garrick and talking to the Garrick, because O'Brien didn't like him. But then once they became buddy, obviously they became inseparable. And poor Garrick got left behind. And that is just...
Oh, yeah. I kind of remember this episode now. Yeah. Now that I'm reading it, it's the two of them kind of beginning their bonding relationship. They weren't friends at this time. I kind of remember the set of that planet surface that they were lodged in, having those, you know, slitted windows and kind of a dark cargo bay type feel. But yes, I remember this.
So next, I want to jump to this because this is very fun to point out. Whispers, episode 14. Chief O'Brien's world is turned upside down when, for no reason whatsoever, he is being ignored by his family and friends and is being closed out of every essential job on the station. This is another O'Brien Must Suffer. But look at the main image of this one, which is why I wanted to jump to it on IMDb. There you are, wearing one of your famous outfits right there.
Yeah, there it is.
And you're holding a little... Yep. O'Brien's
That's
super
a self-sealing symbol?
No, I thought it might be, but no, it doesn't look like it. Close, yeah. So this one, if I remember correctly, I feel like this was the one that we called... No, it wasn't that one. But yeah, this was just going to be another O'Brien Must Suffer episode, which we just had so many of. It was the planet of Parada. O'Brien's on his way to the planet Parada to warn them about something, and is chased by the crew of Deep Space Nine through the wormhole. In the log, he tells what happens.
Oh, I remember this episode. It wasn't the real O'Brien.
It was kind of like a second, you know, O'Brien especially got suspicious after he found out he lost his level 1 security clearance after trying to review the logs on the security panel, which of course he shouldn't be logged out of or locked out of that kind of stuff. Nice little bottle episode, mystery episode.
Yeah. O'Brien Must Suffer.
That's how they do it. See, these second season, first and second season episodes, we really got to revisit, man, because there's some of these where it's like I just vaguely remember them. I remember us talking about it, and I remember the fun that we had talking about it, but I almost remember that better than I remember the episode itself. But it was rated very highly, 8.1 on IMDb, so that's a very good one. Next was Paradise. Sisko and Chief O'Brien discover a colony which lives without technology. Now, I think this was the one that had one of the most powerful themes and moments where the lady kept telling Sisko, just take off your uniform. We can figure it all out as long as you take off your uniform. And he went and climbed back in that box. If you'll recall, he's like, I'd rather be in that box. And there was all those themes and all that imagery, and it didn't rate very high on IMDb, for whatever reason. But I feel like the themes and the imagery that they used was the most memorable part to me.
Yeah, this was, I'm surprised it didn't get a high rating on IMDb. I don't even think we were doing ratings at this time, because we didn't really do the, guess the IMDb.
Yeah.
I don't think it was around at this point, but I will say that this did burn image in my head of Sisko getting inside that metal box, that community, which was, which she essentially was the dictator of, right? And she had this really iron grip that she was ruling this community with, and using all kinds of mental ways to kind of control the situation, mental abuse, really. And that's what people were subjected to. You remember they were openly mocking and making fun of people who
couldn't dig in the ground or something. Who didn't know how to pull weeds very well or whatever it was. So
it was an impactful episode.
Also, like we mentioned, episode 10 was Melissa's first review with us. Her first of all was episode 9 with Heather and Kat. And in Whispers, the previous episode we just talked about, Hanahate joined us as our very special guest. And in this one, Paradise, Melissa comes back to join us and review that one. So that was kind of historic for us in that regard. Also, Whispers was our 100th Seventh Rule episode when you combine all the other things that we did, like the Star Trek Las Vegas videos and all the extra things. This was, even though it's only episode like 50 of our Seventh Rule show, it was 49. It was 100 total videos. Anyway, the next one is Shadow Play. That's episode 16. We're going to have to move through these a little bit more quickly. Odo and Dax investigate the mysterious disappearance of people from a village. Kira tries to keep a close eye on Quark, while Vedic Bareil unexpectedly visits. It's another Vedic Bareil episode.
Yeah, there was an actual appearance of Bareil.
Yeah, finally.
Which is a rare sighting.
Yeah,
he's talked about but not seen much.
So just to speed through these a little bit more, Playing God was next after that. A Trill named Arjun comes to Deep Space Nine to learn what it is to be a Trill with a symbiont, but finds his teacher Dax to be less than he expected. Remember, he really didn't like Dax, and Dax was kind of, not trying to impress him, and this guy was just like, what's so special about her? That was kind of an interesting one.
Yeah, I think this is the one I was thinking of, and I was confusing it with the other episode about the Trill episode we just talked about. But yeah, this is the one I was thinking about.
Okay. Yeah. Next is Profit and Loss, not Profit and Lace, but Profit and Loss. A Cardassian woman named Natima Lang, who was once a flame of Quark's, visits the station under dubious circumstances. This was memorable because she, it's like, we're just revealed that, or it's revealed to us that oh, there's this Cardassian lady. Oh, interesting. Oh, fun. And then she comes up to Quark like as his ex-flame, and we're like, what the heck? And Garrick was a little annoyed by that, if I remember correctly. Certainly surprised.
I thought it was a great episode. It showed that Quark had a sensitive side. It showed that he had a romantic side, that he had feelings for people or anything else others outside of money. And good episode.
Mm-hmm.
Good episode.
Next one, this is a very memorable episode for me at least, but this one is called Blood Oath. 3 legendary Klingons come to Deep Space Nine to see if Jadzia will participate in a blood oath that they made with Dax's previous host, Curzon. And that was Kor, Kang, and Koloth, if I remember correctly. You remember that one?
Yes, I do.
Mm-hmm.
Now remember they had to do some kind of a set of like rituals or something, wasn't it? Wasn't that part of it? Or
yeah, they were going to go on this mission, if you remember correctly. Yeah, they were going to go on this mission, and so she ends up joining because Curzon is obviously dead. So they want to go, get this, not the Sword of Kahless, but some other thing, and the 4 of them go and defeat all these other Klingon guys or whatever it was, and one of them ends up dying, if I remember correctly. But yeah, that was a very memorable one to me because those were the 3 same actors that played those 3 same characters from the original series. These are 3 original series characters being revisited. So the characters are old and gray, the actors are old and gray, but it was really a nice nod to the original series.
Yeah, I think they were on a mission to go kill somebody and avenge somebody's death. I think that's what it was about.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you're right. Exactly that. Yeah. Okay. Real quick, we're going to go to the free-for-all in just a second, but the next one is, oh boy, should we do it right now? Yeah, I guess we should, just for a minute. The Maquis Part 1 and the Maquis Part 2. This was a 2-parter for episodes 20 and 21. The destruction of a Cardassian ship leads Sisko, Dukat, and Sisko's old friend, Cal Hudson. Bernie Casey, I believe, was the actor. Great actor. To the fact that there is an unofficial war between the Maquis and the Cardassians. The second one, Sisko tries to resolve the Maquis crisis by preventing a war, freeing Gul Dukat, and offering the defected Hudson the chance to return. So this was the big betrayal episode. Even before Eddington, this was Sisko's old friend from way back in the day, and it was really great 2-parter.
Yeah, and it also brought in the Maquis, which we found out was this kind of resistance cell. Very good 2-parter. I thought Bernie Casey did a great job in this one, and it was a good story. Love the 2-parter on this one.
Yeah, me too.
This one really enjoyed this. I thought this was one of the better 2-parters of the series in its entirety.
Me too. Really like the episodes. Really like Bernie Casey. Really like the character of Cal Hudson. Really like the Maquis storyline, because what was happening on The Next Generation at the same time, they did a couple Maquis episodes as well. And this was with Ensign Rowe, played by Michelle Forbes, and she did a similar thing, but she didn't betray so much the same way as Calvin Hudson did. She more defected, like they convinced her, and she was like, I think these people need me more than the Federation does. So it's kind of a different thing, but still love these episodes. I love this kind of stuff. Maquis was a great idea. Whoever came up with the Maquis, it's a great idea. I love it.
Yeah, me too.
So next, we've got 4 or 5 episodes to go, but we are going to talk about those on the free-for-all. Before we get to that, though, we'd like to give a very special thanks to, let me pull them up, actually. Homer Frizzell, Dr. Anne-Marie Segal, Eve England out in Wales, Yvette Blackmon-Tom. Everybody's like, but what about Homer in Chekhov's former? Yep, that Homer.
Homer.
Tim Baum, a.k.a. Grandpa One, Carmen, a.k.a. Skillet, TJ, Jackson-Bey out in Missouri, Bill, Victor Arucan,
Arucan.
Darlena Marie, Titus Mohler, John Mann, Tierney C. Dieckmann, Dr. Mohamed Noor, Anna Post, Rex A. Wood, Anil O. Polat, Erica Strom, Joe Balsarotti, Mike Gu, DeQ, Neil Akasaka, and Dr. Susan V. Gruner, of course, everybody knows her. So stick around, everybody. We're going to do the free-for-all in just a second here, and we'll be right back on the seventh rule. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to That There Seventh Rule with Cirroc. Lofton.
Hello there, partner.
Okay. Joining us today, we have Goldu Scott wearing an awesome virtual TrekCon shirt. Whoa, cool. You could get that at our Seventh Rule Teespring store. We have Anna Post shaking her awesome hair around. We have Tierney C. Dieckmann with two dogs. You can see one, the other one is hiding. We have the twins out in Wales and floating between California and Florida, both wearing brand new Seventh Rule shirts with a self-sealing stem bolt. Susan B. Gruner and Eve England. Gorgeous shirt. My goodness gracious. We also have Melissa Longo looking pensive. No. And Homer Freezy out somewhere in Walter Koenig's former apartment complex in New York.
Building. Howdy.
Howdy.
Let's take the reins on that one.
Howdy. All right. Anyway, we're going to finish our discussions on season 2 on the individual episodes, and then we'll open things up a bit more. So episode 22, Cirroc, if you will recall, it is The Wire. Dr. Bashir fights to save Garrick's life when a device implanted in his brain designed to alleviate pain in the event of torture begins to malfunction and is slowly killing him. Guys, this is the one, the Especially the Lies episode, right?
Mm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
I think this was the highest rated of the season. Yeah.
Rightfully so.
Second highest.
Well, what was the rating?
8.2.
That's it?
Higher. Should be higher.
No.
Where's Anne Marie?
she's busy tending it right now. But if you recall, Cirroc, this is the one where we really get into the psyche of Garrick and all of his deep, dark secrets. And he's making up this lie and making up that lie. And we're like, well, how much is true? And that's what Bashir asks him. And he says all of it. And he says, even the lies? And he says, especially the lies. And everybody's like, oh my God, Bashir's and Garrick's my favorite character in the world now.
Yeah. This was a great episode. It's amazing performance by Andrew Robinson. And it burns, it burns into your mind. So you can't forget it once you see it. 2 22s. So it's funny. It's a season 2, episode 22. And we're talking about it in 2022. So all the twos are firmly lined up.
Man alive. There's a lot of excitement to be had there. Yeah. And this episode is actually going to be released initially on Sunday the 22nd, by the way. So that's also cool.
Wow,
cool.
Another 22.
Deuces. So the next one, episode 23, was Crossover. Kira and Bashir find themselves in an alternate universe.
Before you go on, I mean, did anybody have anything to say about the Wire? I mean, it's a great episode.
You're opening this up. I think everybody's got something. Everybody's eyes got
glossing over it.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty vague. No, okay. I'll wait.
I'd like to come back to it.
Okay.
We'll circle back.
Yeah. A little bit more on that. Kira and Bashir are returning from the opening of a hospital on New Bajor in the Gamma Quadrant. Just as they're to enter the wormhole, a sudden problem arises. Kira is able to solve it, but when they arrive in the Alpha Quadrant, things seemed to have changed. Who remembers this episode the best? Refresh my memory. Oh, Melissa says it's her.
Well, it's the introduction to the intendant.
Okay, there we go. Yes, Mirror Universe. Now we know.
Enough said. That says it all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, so that's really
Yes.
cool. So that was our first Mirror Universe episode for Deep Space Nine. Boy, that was awesome.
Mhm.
Cirroc didn't much care for it though.
Yeah. No, I like the crossover.
Cared for
He likes crossover Kira.
Yeah.
element.
Yeah.
Shall we say?
She's great.
Yeah.
That's great.
So rounding out the final three, we also had the collaborator, Vedic Barile, targeted by fellow Kai candidate. Vedic Barile's targeted by fellow Kai candidate Vedic Wynn as having been a collaborator with the Cardassians during the occupation. Cirroc, what do you remember about this episode? Yet another Bajoran politics episode or something more?
Another Bajoran politics, but just more of I hate Wynn because she was so ruthless and doing anything it took to get the power that she really had no morals, and this was an example of that.
Now, the next one I wanted to jump on too is what was that one? Tribunal. This is another Chief O'Brien Must Suffer. I feel like this is the third one just this season.
In this season.
You really cranked it out this time. Man.
And I remember what
O'Brien.
impressed me most about this. This was the one where he goes through the Cardassian judicial system. But what I liked about it was that the writers figured out a way to, oh, Eve, you've got a toy back there too, or some kind of figure.
My droid.
Yeah.
Droid. Pillow.
No, the thing on the
On
chair.
the pillow.
Yeah.
It's a pillow.
But who's the guy?
Is this your favorite thing about this episode, Ryan?
Oh yeah. Who is
Yes.
that guy though? There's a okay, whatever. Fine. Was that Odo, the writers figured out a way to include Odo into this because you don't want to just have O'Brien by himself. They always have to have somebody familiar that they're working against back and forth. And that's what I really liked, especially about that one. Do you remember this, Cirroc?
Not too much. How did he get out of the trial? Because I don't remember
Odo.
how it ended.
Odo was like
Was it Odo?
representing him, yeah.
Okay.
This
It
was the
also-
one where they like presume guilt.
Guilty.
And the
Mhm.
whole thing was just, it's like this big charade. It's like theater. Basically, they're pretending to defend the defendant, but really they're like, he's gonna go to prison. Like this whole thing is just for
Right.
Cardassians to feel good about the judicial system, but not actually to give him a fair trial.
Well, that's the whole Cardassian judicial system to begin with.
Yep.
You are guilty until proven
Proven
innocent.
guilty.
Uh,
They didn't even like
But-
give him a
but-
chance.
no,
But
he-
Odo found a loophole.
Yeah.
well, not just that, he got
Ah.
out of it because he proved that the entire thing was a farce. The man that got him into it, Mann, who was a former, supposedly a former, war mate of O'Brien, was actually not human. He was the guy turned out to be a prisoner of war who was executed. They took his human image and surgically altered a Cardassian, and O'Brien happened to run into this guy, and they framed O'Brien for some weapons BS. And
Mm.
yeah, they basically discovered the Cardassians were being dicks again.
That old trick. So, but Odo saved the day, and boy, it was a happy ending for everybody. except for O'Brien. He's always tortured.
Had to get his tooth ripped out in that one too. That was rough.
Yeah.
Oh
He was reaching there and pull it out.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
Bashir went in there and fixed it afterwards.
Now, the last episode was episode 26, the Gem Hadar. This was the one in which we were introduced to the Vorta for the first time, right? In fact, this was a really cool one, Cirroc, because this was when Jake and Nog had their own adventures on that planet, and then you guys went back to the shuttlecraft, and Nog was
Field
like,
trip.
"Fire phasers, put up shield."
Focus on torpedoes.
That was such a great episode because you had Jake and Nog, and you had Sisko and Quark, but then on top of that, you're also introduced to the Vorta. You remember this one?
And the Gem Hadar.
Yeah.
I thought we'd seen the Gem Hadar once before, maybe not.
That's why it's called the Gem Hadar.
Okay, maybe. I mean, you're right. They just talked about the gem. They mentioned the Gem Hadar, but we never saw them until that episode. Yeah. Right.
And we get that one Vorta
Eris,
psychic,
played by Molly Hagan. Right, where she had these special powers, and then they never had them ever again. But Cirroc, any final thoughts on this episode?
This was the camping episode. I remember it was the four of us out camping, and so I'll remember that, because it was an unusual group of us together with me and my dad and Quark and Nog. So that was something that was special for me, and it was also outdoor scenes, so it's not necessarily on the soundstage. And even though I think that particular was on a soundstage, but just a different setup, not the usual like ops or corridors of the station. And also that, Nog and I had to team up to find out a way to figure out how to save the day.
Yeah.
So that was fun.
Yeah. It was awesome, man. I remember really liking that episode because of that. I just love the Jake and Nog episodes. We get so much, and a lot of times they're like kind of the B story. So it's not immediately obvious when you see the title of the episode or even the synopsis. But then when you start watching, you go, "Oh, this is the one where Jake and Nog," or whatever, which is lots of fun. Okay, so we went through very quickly all the 26 episodes. And we remembered most of them. Some of them were like, "Do I remember this one, or is that a different one?" We kind of got mixed up. Well, that just makes us want to watch these all over again, because I remember really enjoying this. And so now I want to really enjoy it again someday. However, it is now time for On a Post to tell us what are your two favorite episodes of season 2, and secondarily, what is an episode that you think doesn't get enough love?
Let me think. Two favorite episodes.
Everybody's right now. Everybody's looking over the list and figuring out their answer. You're the one on the spot, but everybody's like, "Oh, let me check real quick."
Don't think I'm not doing the same thing.
I know.
I do really like The Wire. I did like Tribunal. I love that one. And the one, which one doesn't get enough love?
Yeah. The underdog story.
Maybe Melora.
Melora. Wow, you're right. It does not get a lot of love.
Definitely not from Ryan.
Wow.
I mean, it's an interesting comment or thing that they're talking about with, able-bodied versus, people who have their own personal struggles and sort of the commentary on what we might see as a difficulty or, you know, an imposition on somebody's ability, they might see as a strength, or, you know, so it's, I kind of like the juxtaposition and all that.
Mm-hmm. Did you also like her double axe handle to the sternum move too?
Always. I mean, everyone needs the double fist punch, right? Star Trek classic.
Yeah.
What about you, Goldu Scott, wearing the radical shirt?
Well, my number one favorite episode of this season is The Wire. It's one of my favorite episodes of the show, honestly. Alexander Siddig and Andy Robinson just back and forth at each other like that. Just a tennis match of acting back and forth. And it was amazing. And it was lit so well. And I think it really also represented people battling with addiction, and particularly detox, like in the most honest way that Star Trek had done it all up to that point. For sure. Definitely talking about substance abuse, even though it which could also be paralleled to becoming addicted to prescription meds and painkillers and stuff, because it's literally what it was for him. It wasn't meant, you know, for him to get high or have fun or anything. It was just meant for him to not, you know, rat out the rest of the Cardassians if he ever got caught. But I absolutely, that episode, I can go over and over and watch it over and over again constantly. My other one is probably also the one I don't think gets enough love, and that's Whispers. I love that episode. The another O'Brien Must Suffer.
Yeah.
But it's such a classic 1950s golden age sci-fi story of him showing up and what's going on, and he had this big twist at the end. It's because you're a clone, and that's why everybody was treating you weird. And wasn't Jake was the one that tried to save the day at the end of that one too. It's like, oh, you need to get on the shuttlecraft. Oh no, stop. But yeah, I love
Until he
those two.
figured it out. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And on Melora as well, Melora, she becomes a really cool character in the Titan books afterwards.
Oh, that's so cool.
On Captain Riker's ship. She is in astrometrics and has like a 3 decks up and down room with no gravity where she just floats up and down and figures.
I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. So she gets used really well in beta canon. So she gets a little ups there.
The way you were describing it, though, made me think like she's got up to that. She could play all day. She could float around.
She could just float around.
Never with that.
Brilliant.
Ups.
Brilliant.
She got big ups in that book.
Nice.
Where's my Melora action figure?
Dr. Susan B. Gruner, what were your 2 favorite episodes of season 2, and which episode do you think deserves some big ups or ops?
Made a list. Don't worry, I'm not going to read it. Invasive Procedures, I think, is one of my favorite ones, and The Collaborator. I would say those are my 2 favorites. I made a weird list of what I thought ones that were weird, but in general, I think season 2 really brought the cast together, the characters together, their interpersonal relationships. I read that somewhere, but I wrote it down. It really gets into the meat of the relationships. Such an important season. And there isn't one episode that I didn't like.
What were the weird ones?
Second Sight, Rivals, Shadow Play, the Gem Hadar, Whispers. I wrote the Gem Hadar because I didn't like it that Gem Hadar had that power that you never saw again. Yeah. Yes, Vorta. And I wrote interpersonal relationships A+.
Nice.
That's the sum total of my notes.
That's like the 7th rule, right? We have a lot of weird episodes, but our interpersonal relationships are A+. Except for with Eve England out in Wales. But Eve,
we have a new verb now because of Eve.
That look.
Oh yeah, Eving.
Yeah.
Eving. Yes.
Yeah.
It's a great word.
Yes, and you tell it well. So Eve, do you have 2 favorite episodes and an episode that you think is underrated?
So my favorite is definitely Crossover, because I just love the Mirror Universe episode. So I remember when I rewatched it the second time and it came on, I was like, oh yes, this is the start of this, and we can look forward to so many more, because it's just so much fun, and I just love the quirkiness of that. So that's gonna be my favorite. My second favorite is the one that Scott said, so the Whispers. I think that is just, no matter how many times you watch it, it's just so creepy, and it's just got so much atmosphere to it. And again, it just really does bring the whole O'Brien must suffer thing. I think for me, that's sort of what Sue was saying. It just starts bringing in all the characters, and you get all that character development. You get, O'Brien and Bashir becoming best mates in season 2, which was a bit of a shock when you're starting to watch that. But in terms of the one I think that might get the least recognition, I think I'd say for me, it'd probably be the Rules of Acquisition. Just for me, that's kind of, I think, and I might be wrong, so correct me if this isn't correct, but I think this is the first time that we hear about the Dominion, and we sort of, from then onwards, we start getting this sort of infiltration of the Dominion through just references to them peppering throughout the different episodes, until we then get to the Gem Hadar at the end, where we actually see, some of the faces of that. So I think that's what season 2 does really well, is when you rewatch it, knowing who the Dominion are at the end, it's really interesting to see how they start making those references to start building that sort of sense of dread, and who are these Dominion, and who are the founders. So that to me is quite an important episode for that reason.
Good stuff. We could have used these guys earlier, huh, Cirroc?
Yeah, good stuff.
There are a couple of them that were like, I barely remember this episode. We'd be like, oh yeah, I remember this happened, but why did that happen? But I guess we just got to watch it again. We just got to keep watching more Star Trek. What do you think, Tierney C. Dieckmann?
About something specifically, or am I being asked the exact same question?
How about, no, put a twist on it. What are your 2 favorite episodes of season 2, and which episode do you think is underrated?
Swear to God, Ryan. Well, I mean, obviously, they're the typicals. The Wire has always been a favorite, definitely one on the top 10. But well, I can't include it as a favorite too. I'm just gonna lump all of it together. I love the beginning of the season with the 3-parter. Always have. So we'll just make Homecoming, The Circle, and Siege as one big long episode. For a number of reasons. One, for season 2, that is an ambitious start, a really ambitious start. And looking at DS9 as a whole, it's another reason why I love the entirety of the series of what they've done with it. But it's just, as the story runs itself, and it has some filler bits and some things that they could have been more powerful on, but it's damn good. It's really, really good. And especially now, I mean, I'm kind of glad for everybody's sake that I wasn't here at the point when you guys were going through these episodically, because I think I probably would have had some spicy takes on it as how it relates to the current socio-political climate with parallels. But
that was Next Generation.
What's that?
Parallels. I won champion standing. Right, that was that one. It's a good episode.
Ryan, I love you so much.
Thank you.
But the entirety of just that one is definitely great, and I love Richard Beymer in that as Lean Alice. He's best known for his West Side Story role. I think of him as Ben Horn from Twin Peaks and all of his stuff in the 80s and 90s. And I wish they would have kept him around and not killed him off. I think he kind of would have slipped more into the Shakar role if they hadn't. But no, that was definitely a great one to start off with. And then initially, if I had been asked the question, I think I would have gone with Whispers for most of the reasons that everybody has said. Scott made some of my favorite points with it. It feels Very classic sci-fi there. And poor O'Brien, poor clone. God, you really feel for him. But looking back at it for today, and I learned something about myself here. I think I love the Mirror Universe episodes, which is weird. I've never really thought about it until today, but especially through the campiness of the Enterprise Mirror Universe in comparison to the original series. But looking at this one, they kind of went, what if everything that Shatner did when he went in and thought he fixed the whole Mirror Universe in an episode, and then Spock went and instituted all these reforms, what if they just went, well, that wasn't enough, let's just do away with everything Mirror Spock did, screw it, and the Bajorans come in with their alliance and just take over everything, and we get scary hot sexy Kira, and we're just gonna do what we want. And then you get all these crazy camera angles from David Livingston, these awesome shots, and it's so artistically done, and you're up everybody's nose for half this shit. Like it's fun. It's really fun. And I
don't knock it till you try it.
Right. And I usually kind of go, Mirror Universe. But now, no, I really appreciate it a lot. And then some others, I think Cardassians could definitely use a look back, and Rules of Acquisition. Hell, a lot of them. Necessary Evil, Sanctuary. Again, the current and past, but right now, the current socio-political climate is very strong with how some of these play out, and it's disheartening, but it's true. And this season and season 3 and going forward is hard on it. So yeah, it's a really strong season. It's great.
And speaking of hard on it, Parallels, Parallels was like I said, this is the one where Worf said, I won champion standing. Remember this one? I think this is an underrated Next Generation. It's one of the best episodes ever. And check this out. Look at what I saw right here in the background. Tracy Coco, our good buddy, eating some cake.
Yeah.
Or scrambled eggs, whatever the heck it is.
It does look like scrambled eggs.
Yeah, it does.
Quiche. It's quiche, damn it.
Quiche, maybe you're right. Yeah, quiche would work well with the card.
Scrambled eggs.
Anyway, sorry, I love that episode, and any chance I get to mention that one is a good chance. Lots of good stuff there. Tierney. Melissa Longo, however, do you have two favorite episodes in that season? And do you have an episode that you feel is underrated?
Yes. And I will tell you now.
Oh, what a relief.
One of them is crossover, and that might not be a big surprise because, Kira fan here.
Oh yeah.
But I think they did some good stuff in that episode, and I do like the crossovers because of it. But the other one is the Gem Hadar, because I think it was a great way to close season 2. It was a great way to close season 2. And,
that is very funny.
Because it introduces the Gem Hadar and the Vorta and sets up the rest of the 5 remaining seasons.
This is killing me.
So those are my two favorite. The one that I think doesn't get the most.
We talked about this giggling thing.
Yeah. And every time I see Homer look down to try to hide his laughter, it just makes me laugh harder.
Well, you have such a great laugh, Homer. You should share it.
Yeah.
Thank you, Melissa.
Anyway, the one that I don't think gets enough recognition is probably Paradise. It's an episode that makes me very angry, very, very angry, because of the way the leader of the people on this planet is, treating Sisko and O'Brien. It was O'Brien, and putting him in a box, and it says a lot about, I've been watching a docu-series about cults, and this is a very good episode that demonstrates that cult mentality and how leaders brainwash the people they indoctrinate into these cults. So that one should get more recognition than it does, because it's an important episode. It says a lot, I think.
Yeah, Cirroc and I said the same thing when we were going over these, how this one really should have been rated higher, because I think people kind of focused on the story and missed the theme and the imagery that was so powerful in that one.
Imagery, it was hard to watch though. Especially
when
you get to the box, it's
exactly.
I think nowadays there maybe would be a trigger warning on that episode.
Oh yeah, true.
A really good episode for establishing more of Sisko's character to what he is willing to put himself through for other people, and not that, and just Avery's acting ability too. Like and it always makes me super angry. I want to slap the bitch. God.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Well, Homer Frizzell, we saw you hiding your laughter a bunch of times. Scott, we saw you too. You did this thing to try to hide your laugh. You would lean out of frame.
I dropped my microphone. I had to pick it up.
Is that what they call it now?
Yeah. Homer, do you have two favorite episodes this season? Oh, he really did. Okay.
I do.
And a dark horse.
Yeah. So I'll do the same order as everybody else. So I'll go with the two favorites. Blood Oath. As a TOS fan, especially, it was good to see the three Klingons get back together and Dax for one more mission. So I enjoyed that. The Wire, for all the reasons that we've mentioned. And then also we had Andy Robinson on the show. And I think it was his first Zoom appearance ever.
So
Ryan, good work with all of your IT.
You helped to facilitate that, if I remember correctly.
I help, but you closed the deal. And thereafter, he did Sin City, he did a whole bunch of stuff. So
we spent a couple hours. You're right. We spent a couple hours on testing out all the technology, if I remember correctly. But well worth it. And we did the world a service.
And then another thing, also Kim Friedman directed The Wire. So lots of reasons for that one. And then I think Melissa is right in that Paradise deserves more love. I just quickly looked. It's got a 6.6. I haven't rated it yet. I might give it a 7, but I think I should give it a rewatch. It is painful. It is painful to see Sisko in a box. And the other one that I think needs more love, because I'm like, what the hell is up with these hairdos, is Armageddon Game.
Yeah. Cirroc called that the fold hair.
The screen had some weird hair too.
I'm gonna stick this thing on my head, and I'm never gonna wear a hat unless I cut a hole in it. I don't know. Or a chef's hat. I guess you could do that too.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
There you go.
Cirroc, do you have any final thoughts on this season? You know what I feel? Personally, I feel like no matter how much time we spend on these season reviews, we're not doing the season justice. I feel like all it does is it makes me want to go back and rewatch these episodes one by one and really get in depth with all of them. So luckily we already did that, because speeding through this entire season, I'm like, each episode deserves its own review. Thank goodness we did that.
Yeah. No, I was going to add just that as I was going through the list of the episodes, shadow play came up, and I was like, what was shadow play? And it was that guy who lived in the village, and the people were disappearing, and eventually they turned off the main generator power, and it turned out everybody in the village was fake, and it was all created by this guy because his planet had got destroyed by the Dominion, and he wanted to recreate the feeling of all of the, the people that he loved. And I think that's like a Twilight Zone type of episode. Just that story in itself is, like a guy living in a place that he created himself, and everybody there is not really real, but he reacts as if they are, because we kind of need that feeling of connection to each other, and that feeling of home and family. And I thought that's another episode that kind of flew under the radar, but it burns a nice memory in my head about something that I think when you watch it, you walk away feeling some type of emotional connection to the story.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and it also brings up the question of life and how we define it. And just because these beings are made up of, light and shadow, doesn't mean they don't have consciousness of self, so they were real for him and real to themselves. So why wouldn't why should we stop them from existing? Because they're made differently.
Yeah. And also how something that may not even be real can affect reality.
Right.
And I think that's another topic that's current in the headlines of discussion. People talking about misinformation and disinformation and all of these kinds of things that are being talked about. And those things, whether they are real or not, can affect reality. So it's interesting how the interplay was discussed in this episode, that concept.
Awesome. Well, everybody at home, let us know your favorite episodes or episodes that you think are underrated, by the way, because I think all of these episodes pretty much are underrated, and there could be certainly a case made for every single one of these being underrated. That's for sure. And then we could have debates on which one is more underrated. And boy, this is, everybody's so aggressive. But anyway, season 2 was a lot of fun. It started off with such a really good bang with the first 3 episodes. I think Tierney, you mentioned that as well. We talked about that at the beginning. Super ambitious for a second season to just say, you know what we're going to do? We're going to try it, do a 3-episode arc. And the others are like, but we never done that before in Star Trek. And Ira and them are like, whatever, we're gonna. And
and did it well.
One other quick observation is, I felt like as I was watching the list of names of these titles, that sometimes the title would be used again. And I'm just going to say, for example, I see the Siege and I think of the Siege of AR-5, right? So,
and there was also Profit and Loss and Profit and Lace.
Yeah.
Right. And then there was one more, Paradise and Paradise Lost. I thought was a episode. So like I keep seeing all these episodes and I'm like, they've used these names in other ways sometimes in other episodes. And that's another reason why there's some confusion, like Paradise Lost, the Siege of AR. There are similarities there in the word. So
yeah, really cool. I noticed the same with the Siege and Profit and Loss and Lace, but I didn't think about Paradise and Paradise Lost. That's a really good one. That's fun. And we saw that at the Japanese Gardens recently, which was shot there. Anyway, we do have to run, but thank you all for joining us. Galdu Scott, Tierney C. Dieckmann, Anna Post, Eve England out in Wales. Dr. Susan B. Gruner out in California, way out there, Melissa Longo, Homer Frizzell, you know where he is. And for Cirroc Lofton and myself and Aaron Eisenberg, this was the first season that we had to do without him, and we miss him dearly. So thank you all very much for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Until then, always remember that there's seventh rule.